Hi, my name is Jos Smolders, and this is Thursday Afternoon Talks, a series of weekly discussions I have with Frans de Waard about an album, an artist, a label, a genre, or another something musical. This time we discuss RLW's Satanic Inventions, released by Black Rose Recordings in October 2022. Okay, Frans. This time we're talking about Satanic Inventions, an album released by RLW. In Dutch we call it RLW. English-speaking countries will talk about RLW. Satanic Inventions is released by Black Rose Recordings in October. You discussed it in Vital Weekly, I believe in December already. When I listened to the music, I thought, okay, so this was actually a typical Ralph Ruchowski album, in the sense that it's we know him of P16D4, a group of artists that he was part of in the late 1970s, early 80s. And P16D4 was a rather German artist group with people who did visuals, people who did audio. It was quite formal. They had a kind of manifesto about how their music was supposed to be.
Well, you talk about the Selektion and record label.
Exactly,
and
it was part of Selection.
The main band
outlet of
and Saboti or Swing Behavior of the Human Infant was another important one.
Yeah. So and you can hear what they place in their manifesto. You could hear in their music, which was based on recorded sources, tape recorded sources that were cut up and grouped by sound sources and then collated again. It was really loud and raw, and sometimes a bit menacing and tense. And
But
I could also hear that in Ralph's personal his solo work.
but also in what I always thought about P16D4 and his solo work, there's a really strong connection to the world of musique concrète.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the sense that they had sound objects, but also instruments, and there was a lot of cut up and a lot of collage.
Yeah. There was a lot of collage, and in that sense, I think that the basic material was really musique concrète based, but most times they kept the original quite literal in the music. And that has changed because what you see is still this collage-like way of structuring the music, but through the years, and also like the things he did in the early 2000s, Ralph, I mean, were much more sampler based. So he used a sampler instead of a tape recorder, and the music, the sounds became more distorted and with the typical low, how do you call it? The low quality digital sound sources of that time, and there were these 12-bit samplers with the sound, the sonic quality of which was not very brilliant. And in the current release, he still uses that collage stuff, but it's much more elaborated. I mean, that in the sense that he sort of hides even the sound sources by manipulating it so much. So you can still, at some moments, you can hear that, okay, this is a bass guitar, there's a piano, oh, these were voices, but it's only just perspiring through the noise that you hear.
Or the processed versions of all of these sounds. Not necessarily noise, I would say.
No, I mean noise in the sense of non-musical sounds.
Yeah. I also thought it was very much an album that sounded like RLW. Let's call him like that. And I haven't heard anything from him in quite a few years. He was
for me,
active.
it was also quite a long time ago. He did a release on this pandemic label. What's called Amplify. Yeah. So
I didn't hear that Amplify thing, but so yeah, like I can't remember the last time I wrote a review about his work. I bet it was for the same label, Black Rose Recordings, one of the few labels who get by without a Bandcamp, without any online presence, and you have to send an email to order a CD.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing in these days that someone can still get by.
Yeah. It's quite remarkable.
Because, I mean, Black Rose Recordings has been around for quite a while, isn't it?
Sure, yeah. It's a home base for Contra State. Asmus Tietgens has a lot of records, and RLW also has quite a few records. The one thing that I think I noticed on this particular new CD from him was the use of vinyl, or sourced from vinyl recordings. Turntablism, you can call it.
Yeah.
And on the cover, he mentions, because there's a link that he writes on the cover with the, hopefully past pandemic that we had in a couple of years ago. And he links that to the 14th century plague. And towards the end of that, there was a new musical style coming up. He says so. I believe him. Ars subtilior, subtle art, and which made music more complex, more rhythmic, and also musical notation came.
Yeah.
And I would think that some of these pieces, I thought, oh yeah, this surely must be some sort of recording of music from that time,
Mm.
heavily
As a sound
processed
source, you mean? Yeah,
as
yeah.
a sound source,
Yeah.
heavily processed as it is, and I'm not sure. Maybe this is the thing that I haven't heard his music in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think, oh yeah, maybe he did this before, but I don't remember it in that same thing. So
What do you mean exactly?
the use of vinyl and turntables.
Oh,
and,
by
that's-
Ralph, you
yeah,
mean?
by Ralph. Yeah,
Ah, yeah. I no. I can't recall that. Even like I said,
although there
his
was this. Come to think of it, maybe you were there. There was this interesting offshoot from P64 just after they stopped doing P64 and before Ralph went solo. There was a short-lived project called SLP.
SLP. Yeah.
Yeah, where they had 4 turntables and some complicated, well, for the
You're
time,
right.
complicated setup with a computer, allowing sounds to come into the mix or to be
Right.
removed from the mix.
Yeah. That
So-
was that has been programmed at V2.
Yes, I saw the one
Yeah,
at V2.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
a couple of times.
Must have been 1982 or something. No.
1990 maybe, or 91.
Oh,
91. It was. Probably back then. I think
I remember them that they were standing next to each other behind a table, and they were each.
No, that was something else.
That was something else.
Yeah, they were standing in the shape of a cross when they sat at a table
right.
and with a wheel. That was P16D4, the bicycle wheel. That was P16D4 in V2. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
So turntablism. That's what you. That it's not. Is certainly not a new way of using sounds in music for Ralph.
No, but apparently I've got. When I wrote a review, I didn't think of this SLP thing, or and like I said, I haven't heard his music in a long time, so it's not something I return to a lot. I noticed.
Yeah. Let's listen to another track of the album that we are discussing, and then later we can return to the subject of the Satanic Inventions, which is actually the underlying thought behind this album. So that was another part of the track. We played a part at the beginning of this episode also, so people can get an idea of what the album actually sounds like, because you cannot find it anywhere. I mean, usually in these days you can listen to an album on Bandcamp or Spotify in order to get an idea of what it is before you buy it. Like we said, Black Rose Recordings is not into those modernist mediums. Let's go to the subject of Satanic Inventions, which is the title of this album. Like you said, Frans, it's what Wiehovsky does is make a comparison between the pandemic that we have left behind in the past years with the plague that roamed through Europe in the 14th century. There are, of course, differences. There haven't been, we didn't see any witches burn in the past few years, but what we did see was
on the other hand, back then also the Jews were blamed for this.
Yeah,
that hasn't changed.
No, because we see a lot of extremist thoughts about society, about our societal structure, that things that we would think are basic facts that well, anyway, that are being discussed now, which is quite disturbing as much as it is mind blowing.
Interestingly, I think, I'm not sure, but I think Ralph Wiehovsky is a trained historian. Like myself.
As you are. Exactly, yeah.
Maybe that's why this is important for him to outline the I'm pretty sure he thinks differently about this.
Makes the bridge.
The connection between then and now.
Yeah. So, but what do you think is the because you said a comparison is like what you saw in after the plague, musicologists noted that the expression of music changed considerably. So there was this ars subtilior, which means subtler art, actually, a more subtle art. And so do you see a bridge there between then and now?
No, I must say I don't. No. When I hear this music, I think this is a really good album by Ralph Wiehovsky. It's not something more subtle in a way. It's not something different. It's not a radical break with his earlier work. No. So in that way, it continues what we already know.
Yeah, the line. Yeah.
One thing, though, what I think is different is that he's more outspoken in what the music is about. You know, the pandemic, plague thing, the scapegoats, the misinformation then and now. And I don't.
Well, how is that? How does that? Can you hear that in the music, or is it?
No, but that's my point. That's what I was thinking. Oh yeah, this is interesting to talk about, because it's a very good example of somebody who does this on his on the cover of his work. If I hear the music, and I don't remember because I wrote this 7 weeks ago. I don't remember this when I first read the press release or the cover, or just stuck the CD in and started to play it. You know, there's various. There's
makes a huge difference, of course.
It makes a huge difference,
right?
And I have no routine in that respect. That I always
use the same,
everything first and then listen, or I start blanco and oh yeah, let me listen and then I'll find out.
Yeah.
Based on what I heard, I could not figure this out, this whole thing about the
No.
music. So, and even though I'm very much in support of what he says, it's not. I don't think it works like this. If you want to put forward an opinion about it, then you don't have to make a record. You could
exactly.
you could just do write a blog or write on Facebook or whatever what you think.
No.
For many years, growing up as a small young boy with a handful of punk records, you were of course thinking, yeah, this is it. This is the revolution. You have to be anti the Queen. We have to be anti right wing politics. We have to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, and you take the music apart from the words, plus the context of the cover, the music itself doesn't have any meaning at all. So for me, that's always a thing. When this sort of message is put forward, I could say, or pushed forward, it's very hard for me to even if I agree to separate it from the music.
Exactly.
Give me the music.
Yeah. The theme that you brought forward discussing this album has to do with political subjects or context that in which music is being placed, and especially, of course, when it's non-vocal music, so it's instrumental music,
like this is,
and of course you. In this case, anyway, the political, social context is quite hidden in the music, and I can assume that when you listen first and then hear the context, you think that afterwards you can think, okay, yeah, well, okay, I'm reading this now. I can see that this music sort of fits within that context in a more subjective way. But is your question more of, is it at all possible to make political music, political instrumental music? So, or should we do it or shouldn't we? Is it bullshit to make political motivated music?
I wouldn't say it's bullshit. People should, if you think that, or if anyone thinks that you can put forward your political message through music, fine. Don't be disappointed if people don't pick up on it. Especially if the music is all instrumental. I personally wouldn't do it, or I can't. Well, I did a long time ago release a compilation cassette against a label from the US with some right-wing tendencies. Because we were thinking that this is kind of pollution of the network, of our cassette network. But no, but this was 32 years ago. So, so now I would say it's not possible to do it in instrumental music. It's possible to do it with, if you stick words to it. Sure, yeah, then this is very easy.
Yeah.
And it also has to do with something else that I very rarely listen to words.
Personally, in my own music, I am always have been quite reluctant with political statements and music, but the past few years, maybe just because of those crazy flat Earth people. A few years ago, there was by George Floyd that incident, the American black man who was murdered by the police. I made a track and published it on Bandcamp, and all the money was for the NAACP. And early last year, I did a bunch of tracks which are sort of elegy for Ukraine, and all the money I earned from that went to the Red Cross.
Yeah,
but I, in that music, I mean, the first sample, you can hear people chanting during. So the sound source is really something from the real world, let's say, and within the context of the subject. And the other was more abstract, but really, elegy-like mournful music, actually. So that the first one is really literal, and the second one was more artistically motivated.
But where did the chant come from?
The chant was from the people who protested who protested the policies of the police in the United States, and that was one of the source materials that I used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, but should I not know this? Could I hear it?
Yes, you could do it. That is quite, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
so that's. But on the other hand, I think I have always thought I've been more like, the art. I mean, I want, in a sense, what we discussed when we talked about Tietjens, that my music in that sense is absolute. It's absolute music in the sense that what for me, also when I'm producing the music, the thing that motivates me to make the music, to produce it, is the music itself. Yeah. So it's the tones, the structure, how things evolve, all these things that make music.
And how do you see Ralph Wachowski as part of the whole scale program music, absolute music?
Yeah, well, then we go back to P16D4 again, where I think that, to me, the music that I heard from P16D4 and Ralph Wachowski also in his early days was much more raw commentary on the fragmented society that we live in. And so it's, but that's my interpretation of the music. I mean, anybody can. I mean, the music itself is so, in a sense, also absolute, maybe, that you can give it any interpretation. But my interpretation, and that has to do with my position at that time in society as well, and my political views at the time, was like, okay, this is a rather bleak interpretation of of modern Western society. But again, that's my interpretation. Yeah,
post-industrial culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Was, I said P16D4 came from the world of of improvised free music.
Yeah,
and evolved into Muziek Concreet one side, and on the other side more industrial.
Yeah,
industrial music, and so they were. Back then I thought that was fascinating. I also very much liked the whole idea of recycling.
Yeah,
that you would take
course,
sounds
that
and
was-
he could
yeah.
continuously rework them.
Yeah.
And interesting that somewhere these weeks, the two first LPs by P16D4 will be reissued on vinyl.
Oh, wow. Great.
Q in Halbtrauer and Destruct. And especially the latter, Destruct, where they use sounds from people that were mailed to them, and they created compositions from, a rhythm
From what
machine
they received, yeah.
from a guy from Japan,
Yeah.
combined with a radio sound from England and a bass line from the United States.
Yeah.
And that was, I thought, was fascinating stuff. If you would make this political, you could say this is very green. You don't have to record new sounds, and then you could say, oh yeah, well, we are also in a way involved in politics, but that's something I would not do.
Let's close, or do you have closing words for this episode?
No,
Okay.
interesting stuff.
Okay, so when we close off, we listen to a third part of a track by RLW Satanic Invention. Okay, Frans, see you next time. You can also listen to Thursday Afternoon Talks through Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
No, ja, no, zaginę na fan, na fanowym serce, co?